What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me, where today we're going to be creating this neon Procreate design where we're going to turn the flat Procreate logo into a 3D metal object with this floating neon design on top. As always, you're going to need to check out the requirements that are in the description down below. That will give you the canvas size. There is no palette today, we're simply just using the logo of Procreate and black and white, and the actual image I've used for the Procreate logo. As always, if you like this video, please drop a like down below, and at the end, be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram. There's a link to all my socials in the description. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and swipe up from the bottom to get our dock, and we're going to go ahead and grab your internet browser of choice and open up the link that's in the description down below. So you can drag up the app onto the side of the screen there, and then you'll get the Procreate logo. We're just going to go ahead and drag that image onto our canvas, and then you can go ahead and swipe up and just get rid of that for a second. Then when we zoom out of our canvas a little bit, we're going to go ahead and scale up the Procreate logo, and we're going to make sure it's positioned nicely in the center of our design. Now the final size I've gone for here is 1540, and of course by 1540, and then tap on your cursor when you're done. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is grab our selection tool. We're going to go ahead and use the automatic option here, and this will select the color that you tap on. So if we tap on the outside edge, we're going to select all of that area. Now what you can do is that if you drag backwards and forwards on your color threshold at the top here, it will become stronger or weaker depending on what you pop it as. And if you drop it at 40% there, you should then have a nice cutout of the image. Then go up to your layers, and you can tap on the layer and go ahead and clear the selection. That will then cut out the majority of that. We will need to just go ahead and erase right around the outside, and there's a quick and easy way to do that. Just go to your selection tool, go to freehand, just very loosely draw around the Procreate logo like so, and tap on the dot, and then invert the selection. So we're not selecting this shape, we're selecting the outside. Go back up to your layer, tap on it, and use the option of clear. And that will have got rid of everything around the outside. Next, let's go ahead and tap on our background color, and just double tap at the bottom of your disk to select black, and then hit done when you're done. So now we've done that, we're going to go ahead and then create the side profile of the 3D object here. So we're going to go up to our layers. We're going to swipe our layer to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out of the two. So grab the bottom one and then grab your cursor. And the only thing you need to do is just drag it down to the bottom right until you create a gap like so between the original and the base layer here. Tap on your selection tool when you're done. Now of course, to make this 3D, we just need to go ahead and link up the corners a little bit. So all we're going to do for this is, we're going to go ahead and if you hold your finger down to select a color, we're going to hold our finger down on the screen to select this green here. So you want to select this color just in here, then go to your selection tool, use the freehand option and color fill, and then just go ahead and tap down this line, getting as close to the edge as you can, but not going past it, right up to the point there. And then go from there to the other point of the top layer, and then go all the way around, and then tap on your dot when you're done. And then tap on your selection tool. That will have filled that in with the correct color. And when we zoom out, it nicely matches up for the moment, and it will do for the side profile because we don't need it to match completely. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same up here. So we're going to hold down to select the purple that we want, and it's going to be this darker purple up here towards the tip, so like this color here. Then grab your selection tool again, and then again go round this edge here, get as close as you can to the edge as possible, and then right to the tip. Tap on the other point as well, and then go around the underside here, and tap on your original dot, and then tap on your selection tool when you're done. And that's all we need to do just to create that side profile. What we're now going to do is just make it look like the top colors bleed down the side rather than be a duplicate image. So we're going to go up to our layers, and the layer for the bottom here, we're going to tap on it and we're going to alpha lock it. We're then going to go to our adjustments, motion blur, and from a sort of diagonal fashion in this sort of angle, we're just going to bleed those lines like so till we create something like that. So I've gone to about sort of 30% there, motion blur at the top. So I put my pen down here and just came down here in a sort of diagonal fashion, and that will just bleed the colors out and just gives us that much more cleaner side profile. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. What we're then going to go ahead and do is go to our layers again. And what we're now going to introduce is some shadows here just to differentiate the different areas. And we're going to group our layers. So first of all, we're going to go to our colors and double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black. We're then going to go to our layers. And then above this side image here, we're going to create a new layer. That's going to be selected, and then we're going to select our side profile and group them together. And if we tap on the group name and tap on it again, we get the option here of rename. And we're going to call this side. And then collapse your keyboard down. Now this empty layer inside the group, we're going to tap on that layer and clipping mask it to the side image here. And then drag and drop black onto the screen. And then you're going to want to go back to the layer, tap on the N for normal and just lower the opacity down. And you're going to want to drop that to 60%. And then you can go ahead and collapse the side group down for a moment. Now before we carry on, we need to go ahead and create the very sort of fine edge that runs around the outside of the logo. So we're going to go to the actual top layer. We're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it again. And the top one out the two, grab your cursor. And we're going to use the uniform option here and only this bottom right node. And we're just going to grab it, drag it up until you make it a little bit smaller. And then you'll reveal just a little bit of the edge of the one underneath. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And if I zoom in, you can see the gap there. And then what we're going to have to do is zoom in. And we're going to have to just make one connect at the very top between this side profile and the very top image. So we're going to go ahead and again, pop your finger on the screen and just hold down to select the color. We want this darker purple out of the two, just here. We're then going to go to our layers. We're going to go to the bottom layer out of these two logos here. We're going to go to our selection tool. We've still got freehand and color fill turned on. And we're just going to connect these points up. So I'm going to go across this top edge here to the edge and the very point at the end there, and then link it up to the other point and then come down there as well, and then tap on my original node there and then tap on my selection tool when I'm done, and that would have filled that in. And we've now got the logo at the very top, the nice crisp edge, and then the actual side profile. Let's then go to our layers, and this side profile that we've got here, we're going to create a new layer above this. We're going to swipe on the logo underneath from left to right to select it. And then we're going to group these together. And we're going to tap on this group, tap on it again, rename it, and we're going to call it Edge. Just to keep things nice and organized so you know what I'm referring to. I'm going to collapse that down. The empty layer in the group, we're going to tap on it and clipping mask it to the logo underneath. We're going to go to our colors, double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black, and then go to your layers and drag and drop the black onto the screen. And then you'll see that edge go completely black, but then go back to the layer, tap on the N value and lower its opacity down to 40%. And then what we're revealing there is a much darker side, a slightly lighter edge, and then the top will be a completely different color as well. Then go back to your layers. This top logo on its own, we can go ahead and create a new layer right above it. And again, swipe on the logo underneath from left to right to select it and group them together. We can collapse the edge down and also rename this group, tap on the group name and rename it and call it top. Again, the empty layer inside, tap on that layer, tap on it and clipping mask it to the logo. While we're here, we could actually change the opacity, so tap on the N and lower the opacity down to 30% or thereabouts. And then go ahead and drag black from the corner onto the screen, and then you'll darken up that top edge there. So we've now got a lot of our layers ready to go, and we can start to add in the neon bars now. So collapse the top group down. We're then going to create a new layer above, right at the top. Go to your colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're going to go to calligraphy, and we're going to use the Monoline Brush. And then what we can do is if we tap on the Monoline Brush, I just want to show you my stabilization settings. So I've got streamline all the way up to the max and stabilization to about 50%. That'll just allow you to create nice smooth lines, and Procreate will take a lot of the jitter out of it. So hit done when you've adjusted yours as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply trace the Procreate logo line all the way up and down here. Now my Monoline Brush is currently set to about, let's get to about 7%. And you can start at top or bottom, either side that's easiest for you. And in one motion, we're going to come down here and then go down to the end point. So it may take a couple of tries to do this, but hopefully the monoline settings will help you. Once you've done that, we're then going to go ahead and create another new layer. So go up to your layers and create another new layer. And then we're going to create the top line. So we're going to start at either side, whichever one's easiest for you. Just like so. And now we've got two layers with two different lines on, and all we need to now do is just get rid of any excess. For example, where these two lines touch here, we've got a little bit of excess that runs up to there. So what we're going to do is go to our layers. We're going to pinch the two layers together. That merges them onto one. And then grab your eraser. Tap on your eraser, make sure you're using the Monoline Brush. And if you reduce it to something close to what it is, about 10%, it should make it nice and easy. Where we can then just round off this edge, just here, just like that, and then get rid of all the excess above to create a nice rounded point on the end there. And then zooming in on the bottom corner, we're going to do exactly the same. We're just going to round off this edge like so, and linking our two lines together. We've now got the outline ready to go. And then from there you can grab your cursor, and then what you can do is just scale it down a little bit in size, so to something maybe like this, and then just put it back in the center line. And you may need to just rotate this slightly just to make sure that the lines fit within the actual Procreate logo. So a little bit smaller than that again, and then just seeing if we need to rotate it just a smidge, a little bit like this, to fit within that boundary. It's not too sort of dependent that it needs to sit perfectly in there, because we're going to elevate it off of the object in a second anyway. So then tap on your cursor when you're done, and you should end up with something like this, where the neon lines are somewhat as close that we can get to the actual shape. Because then what we're going to go ahead and do is, we needed to get them pretty close on the inside, because we're going to go to our layers. We're going to open up the top group for a second where we've got the logo here. Swipe the logo to the left and duplicate it, and then make sure you grab the bottom one out of the two, drag it up and above our neon lines there. Collapse the top group down just so it's nice and easy for you, and then this top layer here should pretty much cover up all of your white lines. If it does and there's no little bits missing on corners, you're perfect and ready to go, because what we're going to do is we're going to go to our layer. We're going to go ahead and tap on the layer of the logo and clip it to the white lines that we just made. And then we're going to go ahead and pinch the two together. What we've then done is we've created our neon lines that match up to the exact same colors of the Procreate logo. So when we blur them out and create the neon later on, it's going to be nice and multicolored. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go up to our layers. We're going to create another new layer above the neon logo, and then swipe on the neon underneath, swipe that from left to right, group that together, and then let's rename this group as well. Rename it and call it neon. And then we can collapse that group down for a second and turn it off as well. So we'll come back to it later on, because now what we're going to do is add this sort of chamfered metal look to the sides of our logo. So for that, we're going to go ahead and go to our side profile first of all. So open up the side group, and then above our black layer here, if you want to, you can pinch these two together if you want to save yourself some layers. So that could be one layer saved, but we're going to create a new layer above it, tap on this layer and clipping mask it to the side profile. What we're then going to go ahead and do is making sure our color is still set to white, which it is. We're going to go to our brush library. We're going to go to airbrushing, and we're going to use the soft brush. Now you want your brush size to be something maybe sort of about 10%. That looks pretty good in terms of size. We're going to go ahead and add in the foundation highlights for our little side profile here. So we're going to go back to our layer quickly and change the layer effect from normal and change that to add. This will really punch out the original colors underneath. Now I'm imagining that there is a light source, just a very light source down here, and another one maybe up in the top right hand corner. So that's how we're going to go ahead and add in our lighting. So anything facing the light source in this direction, such as here, the tip here, and maybe the very tip here from the light source up there, is going to get some lighting. So the first thing to do is very lightly just brush over the tip here of the side profile like so. This area here, I'm going to sort of draw a line in the middle, and then very lightly just blend that out to the left, and very lightly blend that out to the right, like so. And then on the top edge, just brighten up that edge as well, just bringing that into play a little bit more, brightening it up as it makes its way around the side profile till you end up with something like this. From there, we're going to go ahead and create another new layer. So we're going to go up to our layers and create another new one. We're going to tap on this layer and clipping mask it. We're going to tap on the N for normal and scroll down and change that to add. And then we're going to reduce our brush size down to maybe about sort of 4%. And we're going to create some nice bright chamfered lines in here. So we're going to go over everywhere we've put a highlight. You can start to maybe just add in some lines. So I'm just going to go right over the edge here, brighten up the tip. I'm then going to go ahead and look in the lighter areas we created. I might even reduce the brush size down to about 3% and just create some lines that run through. So you want to start off with a few bright ones and then very lightly maybe expand on them, making them a little bit wider. Draw in another one, but you want your lines to run in the same direction. So you want them to sort of point downwards, and then just maybe add another one here, very light source. Maybe blend this one out to the left hand side a little bit. Just something like that. So we're drawing in a line, and then it's up to you if you want to just blend that out by just very lightly feathering it upwards. You can maybe even reduce your brush size down to maybe 2% and put some much thinner lines in here, just to add in even more sort of detail in there. So just some extra lines in there, like so. And then we're going to go right up to the top here, and I'm going to increase the brush size back up to about 3 or 4% just to brighten up the very top edge here. And then this is kind of a funny angle because it's not really necessarily facing us. So you're going to have to sort of angle your brush a little bit, like so. Maybe reduce the brush size down to about 2% and just add in some little finer lines in there. But maybe some bright edges like that, like so. That sort of blend their way round. Now, of course, you're probably asking now, well, there's these big gaps in these areas here. Because they're shadowed areas, we can just go in with black in a second and add in some lines in the same fashion. So go up to your layers, create one more layer for this group, tap on it and clipping mask it also. And then for this one, just go up to your colors, double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black, and then go ahead and make your brush size maybe sort of around about sort of 3 or 4%. Get a sort of a foundation line in here, so something maybe like this, and then draw in some more in these darker areas that meet up to our light areas. So something a bit like this. Reduce your brush size down to say 2%, drop in some more fine lines in here. And this is all going to add onto that sort of metal look. So I'm just adding in some darker lines in there. And then you can go ahead and move across into this area here, this much darker area. And again, about 3 or 4%, draw in a dark line to start with. Reduce the brush size down to maybe 3 or 2%. Let's go down a bit smaller. And then drop in some shadow lines in there. And what you want to kind of do is just as soon as you get to sort of really close to your highlights, start to make the pressure a lot less. So you're just going to sort of blend it round nicely into your highlights. And don't be afraid to go over some of your highlights if you want to, just to sort of create a nice smooth transition between your light areas and your darker areas. Now that's it for the side profile. If you want to and you've added in too many lines, just like I have, I'm just going to go up to my layers. And where I've added maybe the sort of finer details on top, I'm just going to go to my adjustments. So I'm on my white highlights layer. I'm just going to go to my adjustments. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur and just blend them out a little bit. I want it to be nice and sort of detailed, but just blurred out a little bit. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of blur, maybe about 7%. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the side profile. Now, if you want to, you can go to the side group now because it's completely done with, and you can tap on it and use the option of flatten. And that will put it all into one layer for you. I'm going to undo that just in case I need to go back to it later on. But otherwise you can collapse the group down if you've got the layers for it. But again, tap on the group and flatten it if you need to. We're then going to move up into the edge group. So go to the edge group and open that up. And we're going to kind of repeat the process a little bit. So we're going to tap on the dark shadow that we've got for the side. Tap on our plus icon to create a new layer. And tap on that layer and clipping mask it. We're then going to go ahead and go to our colors again. Double tap in the top left hand corner to select white, and using the same brush, the airbrush, we're going to make it about sort of 2%, and everywhere you've got a highlight such as here, we're just going to go ahead and just start to sort of brush in some very thin lines that sort of match up to it. So everywhere you've sort of put a highlight, you can just above it just start to add in some highlights on this edge. So you're using the layer below as a guide, and you can see I'm kind of like leaving little gaps in there. I'm also not pressing too firm because I don't want it to be too bright and overpowering. But just blending that out here and there, a little bit more here. And if you press a little bit firmer in certain areas, that's fine. You can create sort of semi-brighter areas. But you're just wiggling your pen up and down in these areas to just add in a nice shiny edge. Most definitely up here as well, right on the end, we're going to make sure we add in a good amount of colour up here. So just wiggling your pen up and down above your highlights from that side profile. And if you do lots of little lines, you start to sort of add in that real sort of metal chamfered look to it. So you can go over the top of some of your lines as well, brightening up some edges. Taking a look at what you've added so far. You can maybe just add in a few more that maybe just run up here a little bit. Bouncing that pen up and down this edge. Most definitely down here as well on the tip of the side there, we can just add in some brighter tones and then run around a little bit. And then we can then switch our color to black, so double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. Maybe increase your brush size up to a slightly larger 2% because there's actually multiple. And then again in your shadowed areas, just very lightly just brush up and down, just adding in some nice little bit of texture in the side here. A little wiggle up and down this edge. I'm not going to focus on it too much because that is all really that you should be adding. And then maybe I'll just drop in some shadows in the gaps in between our highlights, just to sort of give some contrast. Some very light lines in there. And then in my shadowed areas, I'm just going to maybe emphasize them a little bit more. Until you end up with something like this, and then you've got a nice crisp metal edge there on the side. And that's all we need to do for this group as well. So you can go to your layers if you want to. You can tap on the edge group and tap on it and flatten it if you're worried about your layers. Now we're going to move into the top group, and there's only one layer we need to make in here. So we're going to go ahead and expand that top group. Tap on the dark layer that we added on top. Create a new layer above it. Tap on that layer and clipping mask it. Change the layer option from normal to overlay. And with your color, you need to double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. Continuing with the soft airbrush, we're going to make it sort of around about sort of 5 or 6%. Just going to brush in a line that runs across here very lightly. And then another one just running across here as well. It's just going to add in a nice sort of reflective, glossy sort of look to the actual top edge there. And that's that top edge now done with. So we're going to go up to our top group, and before we potentially flatten it, if that's something you're doing, we're going to go ahead and tap on the logo in here and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. We're going to grab the bottom one out the two and just drag it all the way down just in front of your background color and underneath your side group. The top group now, you can collapse that down and flatten if required. And then what you're going to want to do is on this layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And then the top one, tap on it and alpha lock it. Go to your colors, double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black, go back to the layer, tap on it and fill it so that it only now fills in that area that we alpha locked, and then tap on the layer and turn off the alpha lock. We're going to use this in a second, but for now we're going to go ahead and grab the bottom colored version. We're going to go ahead and go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right, adding in a nice 40% Gaussian blur. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. That's going to act as our sort of foundation layer of color in the background there. And go to your layers, swipe this layer to the left and duplicate it again. And then the top one out the two, go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and then spread that right out until you get to about sort of 55%. Then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And that will have really diffused the light and pushed it really far out. We want to add a nice little shadow in here, and that's exactly what we created this dark layer for. So make sure you tap on that dark layer, go to the adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right, just adding in, it's only got to be small, something about 10%. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then grab your cursor and then move this down until you start to see it underneath this bottom right edge of the actual logo here. So we're just going to sort of push that until we see just a little bit of a shadow under there. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. So we've just moved it down to this bottom edge only. And now we can start to really sort of add in the neon effect. So you've done all the sort of side work now. We can work on the top area. Again, your background, if you want to, you can pinch these 3 layers together to save on your layer count. I'm going to go back up to the neon group and turn it on. We turned it off earlier on. And we're going to expand that out now. Now we've only really got an empty layer and the color layer in here. we're going to go ahead and swipe on the color layer to the left, and we're going to duplicate it. We're going to tap on the layer. We're going to alpha lock it so we can fill it in with the correct color. So we're going to go up to our colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. We're then going to go back to our layer. We're going to tap on it and we're going to fill it. And then tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. What we're then going to go ahead and do is swipe that layer to the left and duplicate it. So we've now got a white one, and a colored one. The bottom white one, so the middle out of the three, tap on this and invert it so it'll change it from white to black. We're going to leave this here as a shadow for later on. And then grab this colored version here and drag it above the shadow. So your order now should be white, colored, and then the shadow. The white one and the shadow, we're going to go ahead and swipe and select both of them. So we're going to swipe on the white one from left to right until both layers are selected. Then grab your cursor, and this is where we create the elevation with the neon above the actual sort of sign. So we're going to move it up like so until we create a bit of a gap between it and the original sign underneath. So something like that, and then tap on your cursor when you're done. And you should end up with a nice little gap, and then you'll see the black version underneath. Go to your layers and turn off the black version for now. We don't need it for a moment, so we've got the black one there. And if you want to, you could actually tap on it, rename it, and call it shadow. Just so you know what I'm referring to later on. I'm going to turn that layer off visibility wise. We're then going to go ahead and go to the colored layer that we've got underneath our white one. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to need to duplicate this until we end up with 5 in total. So we're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate, swipe it to the left and duplicate. Keep going until you've got 5 of them all there. Then you're going to need to select all 5. So swipe from left to right, left to right, left to right, and left to right. And group them together. So this is just going to be our color glows. We're then going to go to the bottom one out of the 5, and we're going to start adding in our neon glow. So the bottom one out of the 5, go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right until you add in a 20% Gaussian blur. So you drag from left to right, and that increases the percentage at the top there. So 20% is what you want to hit to start with. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. That then diffuses the light at its furthest distance from the actual beams themselves. We're then going to go to our layers. We're going to go up a layer, tap on it, change its layer option from normal to add. Then go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and this time swipe from left to right until you add in a 12% blur. The lighting now is going to start to really come together. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. Then go to your layers again. Go up one more layer. Tap on it, change its layer from normal and change it to add. Then go to your adjustments. Go to Gaussian blur and swipe from left to right. And this time we want to go to something maybe around about sort of 8%. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. Then go back to your layers. Go up one more layer, tap on the N and change that from normal to add. And again, go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and then this time we're going to keep it nice and tight to the beams at about 4%. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now we've got this really cool neon glow at the top there. Now we kept the normal one underneath merely because it outlines the actual white bars just a pixel or two. It's not a lot, but it's just enough. What we're then going to go ahead and do is if you collapse this group down, so we can actually rename this if you want. This is just going to be called renamed as color glow. Collapse your keyboard down. And then the shadow layer, we can turn that back on. We can go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right. And we just want to add in a very little shadow here, about sort of 5 or 6%. I'm going to go to 6 and then tap on my adjustments when I'm done. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and add in some supports for the actual bars themselves. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and on our shadow layer, create a new layer above it. Go to your colors, double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black. We should still have the soft airbrush, which we do down to about sort of 1% will do the trick. And we want to add in some supports. Now what you'll see is the sort of points of your neon lines, they have a shadow that drops underneath, and you can just draw a line from point to point to create a little support, just like that. We'll add one here on the top edge, so I'm just going to draw in a sort of line that matches the same angle, like so. And I'm going to move across, I'm going to add one here, just like this. So you draw from the neon bar to your shadow, And then at the top here, this one's where it gets again a little bit skewed. So I'm going to go right from the point at the top and just draw that in as a straight line to roughly there. That should just about do the trick. And now it really looks like your neon line is sat above the actual Procreate logo. Let's then go ahead and add in some little flares and little glows in here. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and go above our color glow group and create a new layer. Go to your colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. Go back to your layer. Tap on the N and change it from normal to overlay. You're then going to want to go to your brush library and you're going to want to find the lens flare free brush set that's in the description down below, and you're going to want to find lens flare 9. What we're then going to do is just set our brush to 10%, and we're just going to add in some nice little twinkles on our lines. So I'm going to maybe drop one directly onto the line there. I'm going to drop one in nice bright areas, so maybe one here on that edge, maybe a little one down here on this edge as well, to show how nice and bright this is. And then one just over on this side, just like so, just to add in some nice little sparkles in there. Maybe even treat yourself and put another one there. And if I go ahead now and zoom in with 2 fingers and then go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this neon design, turning the Procreate logo into a nice 3D metal object with a nice neon bar over the top. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please drop a like down below, helps the channel out an awful lot. And if you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so if you want some tutorials to follow along with, hit the subscribe button down below. As always, be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram, and a massive shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. I'll throw their names up on the screen now. Patreon supporters get access to 3 exclusive Joel Create tutorials every single month, and I'll throw up the latest 3 on the screen now. Patrons also get early access to videos, sneak peeks, and much more. So hit the link in the description down below to come and check that out. And if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro that you can actually use code JoelCreate to get yourself 10% off of, or a Paperlike screen cover that I use, or the pen tips, grip and glove, there's links to all my equipment in the description. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.